was reading 1 Samuel, and this verse stood out for me, and it's in 1 Samuel chapter 28, and it is verse 3. It says, "Now Samuel was dead, all Israel had mourned him and buried him in his city Ramah. Also Saul had expelled from the land those who tell the future by communicating with the dead or with the demonic spirit. And looking at this now and thinking, sometimes we are way too kind of, obviously this kind of thing is kind of like out of our hands when it comes to kind of obviously leadership and stuff, like whoever runs the country, wherever you live. It tends to be kind of, let's kind of, in this day and age, it's kind of, let's kind of, be nice to everything. Let's accept everything that's their beliefs. But here it points out how actually a king banned this. He banned the things that were bad. He banned, communicating with the dead. He banned demonic spirits. Here now, as a nation, we tend to kind of, we're not going to ban it, but we're going to kind of just let it like simmer there. But bearing in mind, having these things around can really corrupt people and may kind of not twist people, but also kind of like twist the truth in thinking that it's all right when it's not all right. Whereas like being a leader, you're supposed to be kind of showing an example what's good. We shouldn't be kind of just accepting all the bad things. We should actually be kind of, we shouldn't be complacent, but actually we can actually take this also in our lives. Not so much obviously, because a lot of us, we don't have any control of the governments wherever we live in, or anything like that. And right now, the way the world is, it's going to be hard. Saying that, Trump obviously has taken one good stance. If you know the news, you know the whole thing of banning stuff. Anyway, we're not getting into that, even though I'm not even going to say it's not political, because I've just gone into political. But you can actually take this into our own lives, because sometimes we can be quite complacent when it comes to kind of other beliefs that we know aren't true, but we kind of tend to be like, oh, it's okay, it seems all right. But actually, with doing that, we're actually the people who are taking part in these activities that be like a false religion, or literally kind of going to mediums or spiritualism and stuff, that kind of stuff like that. We're actually doing them harm, because we're not kind of, if we're being complacent over it, actually we're actually not doing them any favors, because they're just going to carry on thinking that it's okay, when actually it's not okay. You shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be doing that, because it's not leading you to where you think it's going to lead you to, but actually it's going to lead you to death, like complete and utter death. So it's kind of that thing of, we shouldn't be compliant at all. And I know sometimes it can be a bit hard, because you don't want to be offensive, or say it's someone close. You don't want to kind of end up like tearing, like, friendships or that sort of thing. But you do have to make your stand, and make your stand known that you are with God, with Jesus, and only Jesus, and nothing else. Like, not, and that means not partaking of the stuff that they're doing, or partaking in any kind of religious kind of get-togethers that they may be doing, because we're supposed to be set apart. You can't have, you can't worship like one thing. You can't worship more than one thing. I'm thinking of, I can't remember, it gave an example, Jesus gave example of a manna. I know it's completely different because it's about money, but it's the same sort of thing where you can't put your attention to more than one thing, and usually the one that you end up spending the most time in is actually the one that's bad for you. So compliance actually causes more pain and than it actually kind of does. Like, you'll think you're not offending anybody, but actually at the end of the day, your compliance is actually pushing them further away from God. So it's really important. Obviously you can still be friends with them, you can still talk to them, but don't participate in any of the things. Like, for example, a good example would be, say, I know with Eid, with the Muslim thing, I knew somebody who invited somebody to, because I think the last day they have like a feast of food and stuff like that, that kind of thing, invited to one of them. She didn't go in the end, but my point is, like, if someone invites you to something like that, as a Christian you should be saying no, because you know it's not something that you support. And again, you know, having that compliance and going obviously gives that mixed message and stuff. So it's just important to kind of, you can have your stance without being like without tearing relationships. And unfortunately sometimes it'll happen because they may get offended because you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that, but at the end of the day you're there as an example. You're an example. God sets you as an example of how you're supposed to live in this world. And when you kind of, you know, go about that because you don't want to upset friends or work colleagues or anything, or say something like that, then you're not really setting an example of what God wants you to, and you're not really at that point showing the fruits of the Spirit, really. Or they're kind of tainted at that point. But yeah, I thought, you know what, that's what what I got from reading that verse. So the main thing is, compliance isn't as good as you think it is. You think that you're not offending somebody, but you're actually making it 10 times worse because you're leading them to death.